Are the Knicks really going to trade 5 to 6 first-round picks plus Julius Randle in a trade for Utah Jazz power forward Lauri Markkanen? Find out in this upcoming video. Now, what is going on, everyone? This is Luca here from Knicks Cast, going here with my first channel video. And today we'll be discussing whether the Knicks are or are not going to trade for Lauri Markkanen. So before I begin, I'd ask that you all please hit that like button. Also hit that subscribe button as well, as that also improves the algorithm. And also turn on that notification bell so you know when I go live or I release a new video. So what has sparked the conversation today, or at least the title of this video, is a recent article from the site Heavy.com. And that suggests that the Knicks are interested in Lauri Markkanen amongst other teams, but they also suggest that the Knicks would need to trade 5 or 6 first-round picks along with Julius Randle to get Markkanen. Now, the article states the Knicks would love to get Lauri in there with OG and Brunson. He is a better fit for them than Randle is because of the shooting, the executive said. If they could swap Randle for Markkanen, then cough up a lot of first-rounders, 5 or 6, you'd have to think you might get Danny Ainge on board. But they don't want Randle in Utah, so it has to be picks. So, talking about that real quick, this is not going to be the first time the Knicks have dealt with the Utah Jazz and Danny Ainge's administration with the front office. You have to go back to 2022, and that was amongst the Donovan Mitchell negotiations. Obviously, he's now in Cleveland. The Knicks did not end up trading for Mitchell because of the insurmountable ask. The ask was about the same as it seems to be with Julius Randle and trading for Lauri Markkanen. So the Knicks were, I believe the offer was, 5 to 6 first-round picks, or at least the Jazz were making a suggestion to the Knicks, trade us 5 to 6 first-round picks, plus some young players at the time. Obi Toppin, Deuce McBride, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett was excluded as the Knicks basically left him as non-negotiable. He is an untouchable in that trade, and obviously he went on to be extended and eventually traded. But regardless, off that point, let's get into Lauri Markkanen's, stats, okay? So Markkanen has spent his career with 3 teams. He was originally drafted by the Minnesota Timberwolves, eventually traded to the Chicago Bulls in the infamous Jimmy Butler trade that brought Butler from Chicago to Minnesota. Obviously, this is when Tom Thibodeau was the president of basketball operations in Minnesota. And with Markkanen was also Zach LaVine was traded, who's obviously popped up in some trade rumors, not regarding the Knicks, but regardless, Markkanen has had 2 good seasons with the Utah Jazz. So we'll go to this season, and then what he's done the previous season, which he was an All-Star and the Most Improved Player. So this season, he played about 55 out of 72 games. He averaged 23.2 points per game. He also shot 48% from the field and nearly 40% from downtown on 8 attempts per game. His free throw percentage was phenomenal, around 90%. He averaged also 2 assists and 8.2 rebounds per game. Now going into last season, he averaged 25.6 points per game, 49% from the field, 39% from downtown on just under 8 attempts per game. Also, his free throw percentage was about 87.5. He averaged 1.9 assists and 8.6 rebounds. So the stats are about the same. But overall, you ask yourself, okay, if the Knicks are going to trade Julius Randle over Lauri Markkanen, what's the upgrade? What is the potential upside? And the potential upside is more spacing. Yes, Lauri Markkanen can shoot like hell from downtown. We just brought up the percentages, but I do have questions about those percentages. Not so much the percentages themselves, but how Lauri Markkanen scores. You guys have seen this. Randle is a 3-level scorer. He can score from the mid-range. He can get into his zone when he drives and attacks defenders in the paint. He shoots very efficiently from there as well. Also, he is a respectable threat from downtown. Now, he shot 31% from 3 this season, but again, he is respectable. He's not somebody you're just going to leave in the corner or leave on the top of the key. He's going to make those shots, especially when the Knicks had their infamous run in January where they went in 14-2. Randle was generating a lot of open looks, or I should say Brunson, his teammates were doing a lot of those generating of open looks for Randle, and so on and so forth. But the questions I have in terms of Lauri Markkanen is how he shoots, and where often does he shoot? What does his shot diet look like? So his 2-point percentage, as in not so much how well he's shooting from 2, but how often he shoots from 2. Let's pull that up real quick, because it's a pretty, it's not a high percentage, but it's not exactly a low percentage either. Okay. For about 50% of the time, he's shot from 2, 50.7% respectively. From 3, he takes 49% of his shots from there. So it's pretty much a split even, almost 50-50. Okay, but this is where it starts to get interesting. From 0 to 3 feet, Markkanen takes 17% of his shots there. From 3 to 10 feet, which is starting to get out to the mid-range, is about 24%, which is not bad. But when you start to get to 10 and 16 feet, and 16 to 3-point land, which is longer mid-range, those percentages dip even further, almost nearly 20%. As Markkanen shoots around 6% and 3% respectively in those ranges. But for Julius Randle, it's a little bit more of a complete shot diet. So Randle's about 70% of the time he does take a 2-pointer, 70.8% respectively. His 3-point percentage has how many times about what percentage of the time he takes a 3-pointer, around 29%. When he goes to 0 to 3 feet, as he can get into the rack and take defenders to task, 26% of the time he can shoot between 0 and 3 feet. From 3 to 10 feet by distance, percentage of field goals there, that's around 30%. Now, 10 to 16 feet, this is where the percentage starts to die off a little bit, but I add that it's also he shoots more of those attempts there than Markkanen. Shoots 11% of his shots from 10 to 16 feet. And you rarely truthfully see him take a very long 2-pointer as to why his 3% of his field goals come from 16 to 3-point land, which is the longer mid-range. Now, as I said, that's one of my concerns with Markkanen. He doesn't have the skill set of Julius Randle in terms of being a 3-level scorer. Yes, he could shoot well from the perimeter. He is great off the ball. He moves around, and he can set screens, and he's great for those pick and pops. But is he a complete scorer than Randle? Can Markkanen take advantage of those mismatches down low? You rarely see him do those post-ups. I think he's more of a perimeter-oriented player. So, as well, that was concern number 1 with me. Concern number 2 is that he's not as great as a playmaker as Julius Randle is. Looking at the assist percentage, now the Utah Jazz, I think their point guard might have been Taylor Horton-Tucker. Also, Colin Sexton was getting some reps there as well. But regardless, Randle's assist percentage this season was 22.8. Markkanen barely 10%, 9.5%. So the second problem that I'm currently addressing with Markkanen is he's not a great of a playmaker. Randle, as I said, can get into the teeth of the defense. And when he gets into the teeth of the defense, he often forces them to make a mistake. Whether that's fouling him and getting him to the free throw line, whether that's overcommitting and leaving somebody open on the perimeter, or Randle is taking advantage of a mismatch, driving down the lane with his explosiveness and his physicality to get points in the paint. Markkanen, I don't think can do that. Markkanen, yes, he's 7'1". I don't think he has the foot speed or the quickness or explosiveness or the power to drive into the lane. Hence why I think he's more of a perimeter-oriented player. Yes, he can play off the ball and get onto some of those cuts, drive into the paint with off-ball movement. But Randle is, I think, more of the fit for the Knicks. And Randle, as I said, we talk about that month of January. That's where he really flourished because he had guys that could play off the ball, like OG Anunoby and Donnie DiVincenzo and Jalen Brunson, and Randle could play off of them as well. Taking a look at the defensive statistics and advanced numbers, there's not a huge difference between Julius Randle and Markkanen defensively. Some numbers favor Randle, some numbers favor Markkanen by a little bit. Although both players are of different sizes and took on different defensive responsibilities by scheme. Lauri Markkanen was often responsible for guarding in the pick and roll and in the paint, with bigs having the chance to back him down when playing the 4 or the 5 with either John Collins or Walker Kessler or both on the bench. Markkanen was better on the floor defensively either by himself as the lone 5 or with Kessler as the rim protector. Now, per PBB stats, with Markkanen solely on the floor without Kessler or John Collins, the Utah Jazz had an offensive rating of 124.46. Their defensive rating was 117.80, with a net rating of plus 6.66. As for when Markkanen and Kessler shared the floor, per PBB stats, Their offensive rating, as in the team of the Utah Jazz, had an offensive rating of 118.33. Their defensive rating was 113.95. Their net rating was plus 4.38. Markkanen was used a lot in drop coverage in the pick and roll, which allows for the defense to concede three-pointers in the high screen and roll and mid-range jumpers in normal distance. Markkanen does have his fair share of times where he tends to ball watch and cutters can slip behind him, or there is open space out on the perimeter for a three ball. Despite Markkanen being 7'0", he only averaged about half blocks per game. I think Markkanen can somewhat hold his own against bulkier fours, but he can be found out of position after the initial shot, which gives the opposition some second chance opportunities. He is also susceptible to be beaten by big men who can lower their shoulder with more physicality to get better position on a post-up for a lesser contest and an easy basket. With the Knicks, Markkanen will be guarding less on the perimeter dependent on lineups. The Jazz were also the NBA's worst overall defense and perimeter defense, but somehow top 10 in guarding the pick and roll, which could either draw concerns to the guards or the defense with John Collins, and not so much the rim protector like Walker Kessler, who put up some solid advanced numbers. It makes you wonder what kind of fit Markkanen would be with the Knicks and how he individually can improve. As for Julius Randle, he can also get caught ball watching in terms of his basketball IQ, but I think his defensive issues are more concerted around his effort. I do believe Randle has the foot speed and the physicality to play with leaner and quicker 3s and 4s on the perimeter. Plus, he'll have OG Anunoby on the perimeter and a rim protector in the paint in most of all times. Not to mention, Randle is a better rebounder at a smaller stature than Markkanen and is likely to be more physical on both ends of the glass. In New York, Markkanen would have the benefit of playing alongside one of the NBA's best rim protectors in Mitchell Robinson and the NBA's best wing defender in OG Anunoby, although the Utah Jazz, per Charlotte Steinberg of Let's Talk Knicks, has stated that they have an interest in the young forward. I could see some lineups where the Knicks could go 5 out with Markkanen at center, but he'd have to be a stable presence in the paint in a Tom Thibodeau defense. In the end, I don't think the Knicks will make this trade for Lauri Markkanen. I think they like Julius Randle a lot and might be hesitant to see what Danny Ainge wants for Markkanen, the latter being Utah's best player. It doesn't mean the Knicks have to extend Randle at this moment, but Randle, at the time being, is a much better player offensively when it comes to playmaking and 3-level scoring with the ability to expose defensive mismatches. When Randle's engaged, his defense is really good. Even if he isn't, either Mitchell Robinson or Isaiah Hartenstein patrol the paint, with OG and Dante on the wings. If you've stayed with me this long, make sure you also hit that like button and subscribe. Also, turn on that notification bell so you know when I go live or release a new video. This is Luca from Knicks Cast signing off, and I hope you all have a good one. Catch me